So there are definitely some cool bats that are happening right now in the Braves lineup. And we'll talk more about Spencer Strider here in just a little bit. But some of the numbers that, again, maybe they coincide with, the Braves, woes here of late or what have you. But I'm just looking at some numbers and trying to dissect what is going on here. So in Marcel Ozuna's last 14 games, he is 4 for 49 with one homer and three RBI. He's hitting 082 with a 275 OPS. Coincidentally, the Braves' record in that 14 game stretch is 6-8. For the month of July, Eddie Rosario is hitting 8 for 52 with a 154 batting average, a 450 OPS, one homer, and four RBI. That's for the entire month, and we're just a few days away from being into August, okay? And this is the one that really got me. Orlando Arcia is 7 for his last 34. Last 10 games that he's played, 7 for 34, hitting 206. The Braves' record in that 10-game stretch, 3-7. Now, I'm not saying that those guys are the linchpins and that it's all on them or this and the other. But one of the things that we have talked about consistently throughout the season has been how good the bottom of their lineup has been and how good that they have been at turning over this lineup to get to Ronnie and Ozzie and Riley and Olson. But those guys, coincidentally, have definitely struggled. And the Braves have not had as much success over these past handful of games as what they've had earlier in the year when those guys were raking it. Now, again, this is probably coming back to the norm, right? Marcel Ozuna was not going to hit, again, he hit what, like 320 in the month of June or whatever it was, and could have been player of the month in either May or June or whatever. Again, could have contended for that. Rosario's had a really good year. We've talked about Arcia obviously being the starting shortstop for the National League. All good things. But some of this is coming back to the middle now, right? Coming back to the mean. That some of these guys, their levels are flattening off to, what they are. And look, Rosario and Ozuna are really streaky players. Marcel Ozuna is a massively streaky player. And again, Arcia is a guy who at some point you're catching up to and you're figuring him out where he's kind of surprised people with what he's done thus far, but it's kind of coming back to the norm now, right? So it is interesting that when you look at the record of the Braves as some of these guys have faltered, and again, I didn't do Ronnie and Ozzie and things like that because those guys have been pretty consistent. I mean, Ozzie had the 3-run homer, last night. Riley was red hot here. He was the player of the week last week. But it is interesting that as Marcel Ozuna and Orlando Arcia, a couple of those guys have struggled here of late, the Braves have a losing record. And we've talked about just how good the bottom of this order has been, how much productivity, whether it's Michael Harris, whether it's Rosario, whether it's Ozuna, whether it's Arcia. Those guys have been big contributors to the Braves' success as to why they've had the year that they've had. Again, right now, you look at the 35,000-foot view of Orlando Arcia, he's hitting 287 with 10 homers. If you'd have told me that 100 games into the season, he'd be hitting 287 with 10 homers and playing really good defense, I'd take that all day long. But it has been a struggle here of late, or again, some bumps in the road here of late. And as those guys have gone, the Braves record has kind of reflected that. And again, Marcel Ozuna is a guy who can go through a stretch like this. He's 49, hitting 082 in his last 14 games. And then all of a sudden he could turn it around in 2 weeks and be hitting 400 with 4 homers and 20 RBI. I mean, again, he's such a streaky player. That's the ebbs and flows that you have to live with over a 162 game season. Now, do I think that they need to start upgrading at left field and start adding more bats and stuff like that? I don't think so. I mean, again, I could see them could see them adding a right-handed bat to maybe platoon. I mean, there's talk about Adam Duvall coming back to the Braves, right? There's talk about him coming back. I could see a scenario where, you might add a right-handed bat and plug them into left field a little bit to give Rosario some time off or what have you, and just kind of like, get his mind right or whatever like that. And then again, using d'Arnaud and Murphy in the DH spot, as you need to. I could see a scenario like that, but it's not going to be any kind of wholesale panic type of move for this team. They're the best team in baseball. There's no reason to panic with all of this stuff. And again, Strider probably deserved better, and the Braves probably deserved better, last night. But again, just allowing the Red Sox to get offensively cranked up and some fielding issues and different things like that kind of really hurt the Braves. So again, now we're going to start from scratch. Now we're coming back home. Now we're going to take on the Milwaukee Brewers, who lead the NL Central. Now it's another 3-game set against them. We just saw them here a week or so ago, and obviously the Braves took 2 out of 3 from them. This will be a good little matchup for the Braves to get back on track and be at home and get some things cranked up and going. But it is interesting that as some of these guys at the bottom of the order have struggled, it has coincided with the Braves hitting some bumps in the road. Now, I'm not saying it's a parallel line universe of just as these guys have gone, the Braves have gone as well. But we've talked about how good the bottom of the order has been to allow it to turn itself over and get more at bats for Ronnie and Ozzie and Riley and things like that, where they've had really a lot of production at the bottom of the order. And you don't feel like that with this Braves lineup that there are any easy outs in it. There's literally like not a spot in the order where you can point to and say, hey, that's an easy out. But of late, it's been a lot easier for pitchers. And again, it is interesting that as these guys have struggled, the Braves' 1-loss record has also struggled as well. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's not. But again, we'll see here, as we get back home and hopefully get these guys cranked up and going. All right, as you listen in to Hittin' Hard, make sure you go into whatever podcast platform that you're listening on and let us know that you're an everyday listener to the program. So we do thank you so much for being a part of our community, but let us know that you're an everydayer, as we like to call it. Leave us a comment on your platform and let us know that you're an everyday listener to the program 5 days a week. So we do thank you greatly for being part of this community.